Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how I'm earning almost $50 per hour. I just withdrew this 2 hours and 10 minutes ago, and I've already got $103 in here that I can withdraw now. That's almost $50 per hour. That's over $1,000 per day in passive cryptocurrency income. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you all the alpha on a brand new project. I'm going to show you how I'm earning this much money, what I'm doing. This project is so enormous, yet almost no one knows about it. Listen, this is on a brand new blockchain that is recently launched. It's not even 2 weeks old yet. Heck, I'm not even sure we're at a week old yet. Yet it's been ranked as high as number 3 out of total layer 1 blockchains by transactional volume, right behind Binance Smart Chain. And this particular blockchain is poised to overtake Binance Smart Chain. I'll be explaining why in this video, so stay tuned. Make certain that you smash that like button if you like earning passive income, you like cryptocurrency, and you like getting alpha on brand new projects. So how in the world are we earning so much money right now? We're yield farming on the Pulse chain, which, by the way, Pulse chain, when I started this video, Pulse chain was at number 2 over Binance Smart Chain. Now it's just under Binance Smart Chain. Pulse Chain just launched. We're just over a week old. I think we launched last, was it Friday, Saturday? And at the time of this video, we're sitting on Monday. So we're not even 2 weeks. We're not even a week and a half into this. And this Pulse Chain ecosystem has absolutely exploded. Listen, it's higher than Arbitrum, Polygon, Optimism, ZK Syncs, Avalanche, Solana. I mean, you can go down a list. All of these blockchains have had all sorts of venture capital money into them, big name recognition, advertising, whatever you want. Pulse Chain is this strange little gas roots layer 1 chain outside of the Pulse Chain ecosystem, or the Hex ecosystem, which is sort of the roots of Pulse Chain. Nobody even knows about Pulse Chain. But if you come and look at the APRs that we're getting, it is mind-blowing right now. Absolutely mind-blowing. Even as the liquidity pools are growing to millions and hundreds of millions of dollars, the APRs are still insane. And I think the APRs are going to continue to stay strong for a long time. And I'm going to explain why in this video. Here's what I want to explain first. I want to explain why is it that most people outside of the Pulse Chain ecosystem still haven't heard of Pulse Chain. And then I'm going to share with you 2 reasons why I think the APRs are going to continue to stay high. Now, this is a bit of an intro video. Some of the concepts here that I'm going to share are important for anyone, even if they're in the Pulse Chain ecosystem. They may not even recognize this about their own ecosystem. But at the same time, I'm going to start doing some tutorials specifically on Pulse Chain just to create awareness for people that are brand new getting started, because being able to get into the Pulse Chain is quite simple, but if you don't know how, it can appear very, very difficult, but it's not. It's very easy to get started with Pulse Chain. Those of you that have been, you understand how to yield farm, you've been doing it on Ethereum, you've done it on, all these other Arbitrum or the Polygon network, you've done all the Binance Smart Chain, you've been doing yield farming on Pancake Swap. If you understand how to yield farm, none of this is going to be brand new to you. But there are a lot of people in the Hex and the Pulse Chain ecosystem that all of this is shockingly new to them. And that's why I think there's incredible opportunity for OGs in the crypto space who can push their ego aside. How in the world could you have a project that could launch and be number 2 and number 3 layer 1 blockchain ecosystem, yet most people have never ever heard about it? I think it's important that I bring up a chart. The leader of the Pulse Chain ecosystem, the gentleman who's hired the developers is a guy by the name of Richard Hart. The first project he actually created was Hex. And the idea is, he said that he was going to create this project called Hex, where it could sort of become like a CD, a blockchain type CD, something similar to what exists in the current financial banking system. Now, it's debatable if he's ever created it, but he did make a lot of people a lot of money. And unfortunately, a lot of people have lost money as well because his project is down quite a bit. Now, that's neither here nor there, but it's important for you to understand that this project absolutely catapulted. I mean, I don't think these prices, this is on CoinGecko, I don't think these prices are exact, but from the all-time lows, it did something crazy like a 10,000x to the all-time high. And so lots of people ended up making a lot of money. Genuinely a lot of money. And what happened is Richard Hart, the way he launched this project, he would go live on his own YouTube channel. Now, currently, if you try to look up Richard Hart, you may come across this website here, richardhart.com. Richard Hart is a force for good. And this is really kind of a PR thing to make him look very friendly, very nice, like a good guy. Richard Hart makes the world a better place, and he talks about all these things he's done. By the way, there's some truth to a lot of this. I'm not trying to. This is not a knock on Richard Hart. I'm trying to be objective for those who are on the outside trying to figure out how in the world this project could be so big. Because I think when you understand how Pulse Chain was built, you'll also begin to understand why there could be some incredible opportunity there long term. But essentially, Richard Hart has, when you come to richard.com, the reason you see this is because he's really rebranded himself. This guy, when he launched Hex, he really became a bit of a firebrand. He was a Bitcoin maximalist who claimed that he saw a lot of issues with Bitcoin. He liked Ethereum. So he started working with Ethereum. He created Hex. He launched Hex on Ethereum, and he gave all the reasons why. And he used to do these epic multi-hour live streams, many of them very intellectual in nature, but also very brash. Some people could have called Richard Hart even a narcissist because he talked about being very smart and very successful. And as Hex launched, he ended up, wearing all these Rolexes and gaudy Louis Vuitton stuff, and he claimed that that's what people want. The guy's clearly a marketer, but I think he was missing the target market there to some degree. Goofy, it was almost silly, and it was controversial, and it did create a lot of attention. But if you looked over some of the goofiness and some of the silliness, and you paid attention to what he said, there was absolute merit to what he said. In fact, my favorite thing about Richard Hart was he would do these epic debates, and two of the best ones are off of his channel, by the way. If you go to his YouTube channel, it looks like this Little House on the Prairie type YouTube channel with all this fuzzy, warm stuff, most of it very positive. All the really strong, controversial stuff that he had, most of it is off of his channel. It's been removed because he's sort of rebranding himself, which is interesting in its own right. But if you go watch, for example, this person here, Wealthwise, I'll try to remember to link this video above. You can hear one of the debates, one of his all-time best debates, just in 2022, so it's not that long ago. He had this crazy debate with Ton Vase. Here's another one. I didn't actually hear this full debate, but I heard this one. This was epic. Peter McCormick is a guy who's in the media. He's also a Bitcoin maximalist, and he absolutely got slaughtered in this debate. With all due respect, this isn't even respectful. He made Peter McCormick look like a baby. The guy couldn't articulate nothing. He couldn't say anything. He resorted to just shouting, "Scammer, scammer, scammer!" It was unreal. And when you see Richard Hart here and you hear him talk, you'll kind of get an idea of who he is on stream. Between both of these, you'll kind of get an idea. Now, he's rebranded himself, but what ended up happening when you would have these very strong intellectual arguments and debate is he won a lot of people over. A lot of people started liking what he had to say. And to his credit, he understood marketing, and he understood what he termed as pumpamentals. Why Bitcoin is likely to go up, because it has a limited supply and it has a halving every 4 years, and so he would call that a pumpamental. And it's designed to go up eventually over time. And so when he created Hex, he designed Hex to have quote unquote pumpamentals. And by the way, the way he did that was, in order to earn with Hex, one of the things you had to do was you had to stake your Hex, and people could stake it for 15 years. You got rewarded for staking it, but you had to lock it up. And if you unstaked early, you got massive penalties to your stake. But when you locked up Hex, what it effectively did, even though Hex was inflationary, what it effectively did was decrease the circulating supply, which allowed the price on Hex itself to actually go up in value a little bit easier. And I'm not trying to go all into Hex and try to explain that, but I want you to understand that lots of people made money. So then a couple of years ago, he decided he was going to launch Pulse Chain. But the way he launches projects has also been a little bit controversial. And when I tell you it's being controversial, understand that this man is both almost worshipped and he is worshipped. People have absolutely called him a god. It's odd. He's worshipped inside the Hex community, and he's equally hated outside the Hex community or the Pulse Chain community. I'm going to tell you, as cryptocurrency investors, the worst thing you can do is get that emotional for or against any project, any cryptocurrency, or any creator or developer. That's the absolute worst thing that you can do. The best thing you can do is try to be objective and look for profit opportunities. And I want you to see these profit opportunities. That's why I'm talking about this. The way he launches projects is also extremely controversial. So when he launched Hex, you had to send Ethereum into this staking lobby. And I don't want to get complicated, but basically you had to send Ethereum into this lobby, lock it up. It went to an address. You quote unquote minted your own tokens. A lot of what he's done has been trying to stay away from regulations as much as he could, which is also why I think he's I can cover that in another video. It's also why I think he's partially rebranded himself to appear to be a little less controversial and a little more likable. A lot of people really complained about Hex because so much Ethereum was sent. I think it was over $1 billion worth of Ethereum ended up getting sent to what they called the Hex lobby. I've never been sold on Hex. I'll explain why. However, I am sold on Pulse Chain, and I'll talk about that some in other videos as well. Some people feel like the way he launched Hex, where people had to basically send in a lot of Ethereum to get Hex, this AA lobby. And a lot of people basically said that he was being predatory to his investors. That's what is kind of the accusation. You can decide that if you want to. I mean, listen, adults chose to send Ethereum to get Hex. I don't know that makes him predatory. He didn't hold a gun to anybody's head. He explained it. You can do it if you wanted to. I did some. I didn't do a lot. And, so be it. But when he launched Pulse Chain, he did this thing where you had to sacrifice. So the idea was you sent Ethereum to this address, and essentially you had to wait, and there's no guarantee you're ever going to get anything. It was basically kind of like a free speech statement. I'm going to make some sort of political statement. I'm going to send in my Ethereum, and maybe I'll get something back, and maybe I won't. I can't expect anything, because if you expect something in return, then it becomes an investment. Well, it took almost 2 years, and Pulse Chain launched, and then those people who sacrificed, myself included, ended up getting Pulse token. But before that happened, a few months later, there was a Pulse X launching. They needed to have an exchange. So it was the same thing. I forget, $500 million, 600 million went into the Pulse sacrifice, and something like 1.5 or 1.6 billion worth of Ethereum went into the Pulse X sacrifice. And then you had to wait essentially 2 years. Now, most of us thought it was going to launch within a few months of the sacrifice, but it took literally 2 years or plus. And so he got a lot of criticism in the meantime for that, but it's launched. Criticism's over. Projects delivered. And of course, the haters continue to hate because their ego's in the way. People like this McCormick guy is struggling. People who got into Pulse and Pulse Chain, just so you understand, we've already, at least everyone's doubled up. Unless they sold on a dip within the past week, they should have at least doubled up. Some people's made 500% on their money. So when Pulse Chain launched, it's important to understand that Pulse Chain launched with an ecosystem already intact. I want to show you something. Look at this. $212 million in liquidity right here in the Pulse and the Pulse X token liquidity pairing. 15 million the DAI in the Pulse pool. USDC pool, 15 million, 6 million, 19 million, 15 million, 44 million, 19, 33 million, 37 million. These are just the farms. If you come here and you go to, let's see, you come here and you go to, just click on that. There's $3.4 trillion in liquidity in this ecosystem. The 24-hour volume is over $3 trillion. That's crazy. 24-hour volume on Wrap Pulse is 2 trillion, 447 billion on the Hex. The volumes are insanely high. So how am I earning $50 a day? Because I'm over here in the yield farms. By the way, to get in here, you have to, if you come to PLS Burn and you come to the bridge, you just need to bridge in your assets. Those of you familiar know how to do a bridge. Just know it can take a while. It can take up to a couple of hours right now. The PLS Burn will show you how far the bridge is to completing. Another criticism he had at launch is it took days to get things across, 2 to 3 days to bridge over assets. But listen, the reality is it was all communicated really well. Within the first day or so, someone had this PLS Burn website up, and we could see the bridge and everything that was going on. I mean, when I was seeing people complain like, "Oh, Pulse is a disaster," I'm thinking, no, it's launching with some hiccups, but everything's working out the way it should work out. By the way, okay, I'm all over the board here. Let me explain something else to you real quick. The reason that Pulse is going to probably do better, and I'm going to do a whole video dedicated to this, it's definitely going to do better than Binance Smart Chain. I would bet money by the end of the year, you can. I mean, it's not even take the end of the year, but by the end of the year, Pulse Chain will be way ahead of Binance Smart Chain. And I'm going to explain to you why. The tokenomics is better. Both Binance Smart Chain, Arbitrum, Polygon, Optimism, none of them have the tokenomics of Pulse Chain. In Pulse Chain, every single transaction on Pulse burns a small amount of Pulse. Every single one. In fact, if you come to PLS Burn, you can see that literally right now, 1.3 billion Pulse have been burned. The Pulse X token, which is a token on the exchange, think of it like the uni token for Uniswap or the sushi token for SushiSwap. This token, or the cake token on PancakeSwap, this token is deflationary. Every transaction on PulseX, part of the Pulse is used to buy back the PulseX token off the exchange and to burn it. And if I can zoom in here, you will see we are about 19x over sacrifice, but we've already burned 0.03% 45% of the total supply. 45 billion tokens have been burned, and we're, I think, 8 days into this thing. That is nothing. And within a month, we'll have 0.1% of the tokens burned. And that's assuming that volume don't increase, and I'm suspecting we're going to see volume increasing. Within a year, realistically, we could have 1 to 2% of the total supply burnt, gone forever. Maybe as high as 3%, depending on how volume does for the rest of the year. That is an incredible, quote unquote, pumpamental. It makes a token deflationary. There's no other, to my knowledge, there's no other swap that has a deflationary token that is the primary swap on an exchange. Like PancakeSwap is inflationary, not deflationary. Uniswap, their tokens, I don't think inflationary or deflationary. SushiSwap, I think, is inflationary. None of them have a buyback and burn that is decentralized, hard-coded into the smart contract, and it just happens automatically with every transaction. And every pulse is burned on every, a percentage of pulse is burned on every single transaction, a percentage of the gas fees on every single transaction. The value created for the participants inside this ecosystem is strong just based on those mechanics alone. Those mechanics don't exist in any other ecosystem. Combine that with the other reason why there's a lot of money to be made here is the mainstream crypto, Ethereum guys, even the Polygon guys, everyone over here, the guys on the Binance Smart Chain. Pulse is better than Binance Smart Chain, in my opinion, in just about every single way. And I like Binance Smart Chain as far as interacting on it. Nothing has the tokenomics that Pulse Chain has. Absolutely nothing. And then because everybody's got their ego hurt because the people outside of the Hex community, outside the Pulse Chain community ecosystem, for whatever reason, want to judge Richard Hart. They don't like Richard Hart. They don't like what he represents. Or they heard another popular Bitcoin YouTuber or another big YouTuber somewhere else complain, then all of a sudden there's confirmation bias because that's their trusted source. They don't do their own research, or they form an opinion based on someone else's biased opinion, and then they don't even understand the opportunity. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, you got to try not to get emotional in crypto. You got to try not to get you let your ego keep you broke in crypto, because Pulse Chain is absolutely blowing up. I have been critical at times of Richard Hart. I've been critical of Hex. I personally am not a fan of Hex, but that doesn't mean I hate the project, and it doesn't mean that I hate Richard Hart. I don't have to like everything the man says. I don't have to worship the guy at all to recognize that he's created something extraordinary. The earnings on these farms is going to continue to stay high. By the way, when I say the earnings, I mean the liquidity pairing, not the farms. Those of you that are, and I'll do some tutorials on this later. But like, for example, that's only a week old, but look at these APRs. Obviously, it's not going to stay this high forever. The APRs, look, this USDC DAI pulls 38%. USDC DAI, 38%. Liquidity, $1 billion. Part of the reason these fees are so high, though, is because some of these liquidity pools are sort of small compared to what you see outside of Pulse Chain. And there's a reason for this. There are so many people in the Pulse ecosystem. They got here because of Hex. The Hex community actively onboarded a lot of people into crypto, and people do not understand how to yield farm. Those of you that are OGs to yield farming, this is a playground for yield farming. It is absolutely incredible. In fact, I have watched several, and I'm going to start doing some tutorials on yield farming for the community, because I have seen several OG quote-unquote hexagons, as they call themselves, explain yield farming wrong, explain the tokenomics behind it wrong, and it's kind of crazy to watch. And I'm realizing, wow, Hex did an incredible job at onboarding so many people. I've watched people tell people don't yield farm because it's risky, instead of explaining the risk and recognizing that no, if you believe in the underlying assets and you can understand what the risks are, yield farming can be one of the best, safest, most stable, long-term passive incomes that you can create in all of crypto once you understand it, and you do need to understand the risk. It's not like it's risk-free. There's a reason the biggest whales and some of the biggest money, venture capital money on Ethereum, is sitting in yield farms. There's a reason that is. Because it's some of the, and so I'll hear people say, listen, if you've got less than a few $1,000s, you don't need to do this. And I'm thinking, what are you doing? Like, I'm telling you, the community over here in PulseX is not as savvy on yield farming yet. They will be. I promise you they will be. But they're not yet. And yet OG crypto guys got incredible opportunities because a lot of these liquidity pools are quite small. I mean, there's some total alpha. There's some secret liquidity pools here that there's insane earnings. I'm telling you right now, when I say secret, they're not secret to anyone who's in Uniswap yield farming. They're not going to be secret to anyone who's done SushiSwap. But the Hex community literally is not aware, and they're like hidden in plain sight. Now I'm going to start doing videos, and I'm going to start talking about it So if they're subscribed to my channel, they're going to know. But those of you that have heard, about Richard Hart, negative things about Richard Hart, and you heard that Pulse Chain was going to fail, and this guy's a billionaire because he's taking money from people. By the way, he is a billionaire. Make no mistake about it. I genuinely believe it is my personal opinion that he has control of the origin address and maybe even the Godwell address. I genuinely believe that is my personal opinion. Some people say it doesn't. Some people say it does. Over $2 billion, at least maybe $3 billion went into those wallets in Ethereum. No mistake, the man's a billionaire. Do I follow him for that? Personally, I do not. I absolutely do not. I mean, he's created, do you not think CZ and Binance made a fortune launching Binance Smart Chain? He's launched Pulse Chain with better tokenomics. It is a better product. It was a better product inside the first week. If you want to argue that the launch wasn't great, I'll give that to you. Fine, whatever. But it was a better product inside the first week. And Richard Hart allowed average investors who were willing to take the risk on a sacrifice phase to get in on a project on day one. On day one. That's insane. Here's another thing I'm going to tell you. Typically, if you come to farms, he's got this ink token here. So this is the farming token. I'll just go ahead and tell you. Those of you who understand how to farm tokens, this is probably going to be similar to Uniswap or the sushi token, meaning it's going to pull back probably 80, 90+% at some point. It probably won't go to zero. They're just like the Uniswap token. There are people holding this token because they think something's, I mean, it's literally named the incentive token, by the way. I love that. Richard Hart didn't even fake it. Just call it incentive token. There are people who are literally thinking that this token is going to, somehow be used in some way, and it's going to somehow, I've heard people say it could 10x from here. It could hit $1,000. I've heard people say that. And it's possible, but right now it's just sheer speculation. People don't even understand what typically happens in yield farming and yield tokens. And because of that, now do I think this token price is going to pull back? Yes, I 1,000% do. But it's not going to pull back anything like we've seen, some of these crap farms that existed on Binance Smart Chain, where the token price didn't even hold up for a few days. This thing's going to hold up for a while. Richard Hart so far has avoided putting up single side staking, which is smart. I don't know if we'll get single side staking. The community, just like in Uniswap, those of you that are OG, like you've staked 6 figures yield farming, you don't ever want to see single side staking, especially in a farm, because it kills your token price. Always, 100% of the time, single side staking kills your token price. You know that, right? It's obvious. It's plain as day. But you'll see the community, just like noobs in Ethereum, noobs in PancakeSwap, begging for single side staking, unaware of what that does to price. Pumps price and then it collapses price long term. It almost always does. And it does in every case that I've ever been aware of, because it increases the supply faster over time. But Richard Hart has delayed single side staking, and he may delay it for a long time. We'll have to wait and see. But he's smart. Even when you look at what pools he has in the that are farming, when you look at what pools are available, he's not prostituting out the incentive token either at the same time. It's an incentive token. He knew he needed to have an incentive token. He knew it was necessary to attract liquidity. But these yields, I'm telling you, these yields are insane. 64%, 1,600%, 1,700%, 600, 1,400, 1,700. It's insane. And they keep going up. This right here has been bouncing from between 1,500 to 2,200% APR since probably the 3rd day of the farm. I mean, it's been crazy how much it's bounced. And that's with 15 million in here. And I'm telling you right now, people outside, I think this APR is going to stay here for a while, because the community is buying up this incentive token, just like people did with Uniswap. They're buying up that incentive token, or just like people still do with Uniswap, because of potential future value. They're speculating for a future use case. None has been stated. I mean, some has been talked about, but none has been stated as in this is as a fact, this is going to happen. There has been discussions of a possible use case in the future, possibly using it with a wallet that could be created for the ecosystem, and that sort of thing's what I heard about. But today that is not there. So people are literally holding on to it, hodling it, not selling it, speculating with it. It's beautiful, and it creates tremendous amount of opportunity in this space. We're not even 2 weeks in. And so because the community is so new to yield farming as a whole, not everybody, by the way, there's a lot of money in here. People understand yield farming. I'm not saying the community is stupid. I'm saying Hex was successful at onboarding a bunch of new people. It creates a lot of opportunity for the OGs in the space. The liquidity fees earned inside of these pools is quite high, and probably will be quite high for a long time, because this pool should not have 200 million in it. It should have 2 billion in it. Down here, we should not have 15 million in a stable coin Pulse pool. I mean, look at the liquidity here. 15 million right here in Pulse chain. This is with a stable coin plus the Pulse token. The ecosystem token is the Pulse token. So there's 15 million there. What else we got with stable coins? Right here, there's 15 million. Okay, so we got 15 million. So roughly 15 million in stablecoin versus the ecosystem token. Well, if you come over here to Binance and you look at the Binance, the Pancake Swap, which is not the only exchange, by the way, but is a leading exchange. So in all fairness, these numbers get diluted with other exchanges like Ape Swap, for example, and some of those other exchanges. But if you look here, BNB is the ecosystem token, USDT is stablecoin. They've got 32 million here. So these pools should be at least double the size they are right now. And the liquidity fees, if you look up the liquidity fees over here, Pulse and DAI, 125% APR. That's not including earnings from the farms. This is just fees and liquidity fees, the APR rewards for liquidity pool. And what I'm showing you right now, those of you who understand what I'm talking about because you've been yield farming forever, when I tell you the LP reward is the APR is 125%, most probably 60, if not 80% of OG hex investors who call themselves hexicans do not fully understand what the LP reward APR is. So I'm telling you right now, there is so much opportunity here. And now they will know because I'm going to start putting out education on my channel, because when I realized this, I was like, people need to understand this ecosystem. And I want my channel to be about mass adoption, and I want it to be about education at the same time as entertainment. So I want people to be informed. I want people, I believe crypto is going to change the world. Innovation and tokenomics like this that are good for the investor definitely play a part in helping change the overall cryptocurrency landscape, the overall decentralized finance landscape. And I appreciate what Richard Hart has created because this is extraordinary. And I want the hex investors and the OG hex investors to understand what they have their hands on. Many of them are going to become filthy rich. I'm telling you, there are people who went into hex who ended up earning six-figure sums with small amounts of money. Some of them multiple six figures, and they became whales into the Pulse and PulseX ecosystem. And some of them have doubled up and tripled up from there. And they may do even more once they understand. I mean, earning 125% on your stack, earning 94% on your stack in liquidity fees, that's before the current 1600, 1700% APR that they're getting in the farms in the Ink token. The opportunities here are extraordinary. So if you're not in the Pulse ecosystem, you need to get in the Pulse ecosystem. If you're in the, and by the way, that's not financial advice. I'm telling you now, go educate yourself. I shouldn't be saying get into it. But if you're in Binance, if you're in Ethereum, you ought to be in Pulse as well. If you're in Arbitrum, you ought to be in Pulse as well. I can't comprehend why you'd be in those ecosystems and not also be in Pulse. The only risk I can tell you is there's one bridge right now. And if that bridge was exploited, that would be a problem. That's the risk. That's the only risk I can think of right now. The biggest possible risk I can think of at this moment. But obviously, if you've bridged over to other ecosystems, you understand that the bridges are always a possible risk. Those of you that are in the Pulse ecosystem, count your blessings. This has been extraordinary. By the way, never be afraid to take profits. People try to tell you all the time, don't take profits, don't take profits, don't take profits. I see YouTubers saying, oh, you shouldn't take profits, shouldn't take profits. Listen, never be afraid of taking profits. I mean, the Hex token went up to 42 cents and we're sitting at 2 cents today. Some of the very people telling you not to take profits were absolutely taking profits. You have to look out for yourself. You can't be afraid to take profits because you think you're going to miss out on the 10x. No one ever made a bad decision by making a profit. Period. End of story. You don't got to sell your whole bag, but don't ever be afraid to sell some for profits, is what I'm telling you. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned for more Pulse content. I'm going to do an entire full tutorial on everything Pulse chain, liquidity farming, yield farming coming up on this channel. So if you haven't done so already, make sure you smash that subscribe button. Thank you so much for being here, ladies and gentlemen. Decentralized cryptocurrency equals freedom. This is Crypto Wealth. I'm out.